So there's a certain chain of events that has happened over time, and I actually want to discuss and talk about these chains of events. And I think it's really unfortunate the way some things have turned out, but let's discuss this. So this is in regards to Andrew Yang and CNN. I want to create a small timeline. The first thing I want to talk about is the day Andrew Yang dropped out. It was very sudden. When he dropped out, it was basically out of nowhere, and he explains his reasoning, and I don't doubt his reasoning for dropping out, nothing like that. But shortly after, we all got wind that he was going to commentate for CNN. And what did this do? This happened to even me, and I guarantee it happened to a lot of Republican supporters as well, is that we all started watching CNN in order to get more of Andrew Yang in our lives. Over time, it's almost like a trick was played. I think CNN used Andrew Yang to play this trick on us in order to get us watching CNN more and more and more. And it's interesting because I would imagine that CNN actually knew at the time that Andrew Yang dropped out and at the time that he joined them, that this pandemic was taking off. So this leads me to believe that this is kind of a push to get like the Andrew Yang supporters to be watching CNN during this whole crisis. Because if you notice, now they don't really have Andrew Yang on as much. It's kind of like they had him on, they caught us all by the hook and said, now you can watch us. And, you know, sometimes I feel like it played a big trick on everyone. And now I listen to CNN for a while and I start freaking out, panicking, thinking we're all in trouble and we're all in danger and this is never going to end and this is the worst of the worst things possible and Donald Trump is doing everything wrong. And you know what? At first he was doing a lot wrong. As time has gone on, he has actually done more right. I'm not saying that he's done everything perfectly and he's handled this the best. And it's like, who would have handled this situation great? I find it odd when we are going through this pandemic and you have 3 or 4 major networks that are solely focused on talking about how bad of a job Donald Trump is doing. It's disgusting. And honestly, I think this is kind of exposing these news networks. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because a lot of Andrew Yang supporters got sucked into this narrative that CNN is pushing out. And it's not only CNN that's pushing this narrative, there's other news networks pushing this narrative, like the New York Times and MSNBC. And it's a fear-mongering narrative. They ask the worst type of questions they could possibly ask. They really just plant this seed of fear in everyone's minds. I mean, every question coming out of a CNN reporter is,
oh, look at how bad it is, and why did you downplay it, and why didn't you do more early on?
It's like, you know, we are already in the middle of this, and we are in the situation that we're in, and you should be grateful that Donald Trump at least is doing everything he can at this point. And maybe he wasn't a month or two ago. Maybe you could say his ego was getting the better of him, but whatever. We have to move past that. And it seems like a lot of these news networks cannot do that. And not only that, I listen to them and they kind of spew off China regime talking points. Like they're trying to blame Donald Trump for this virus, and they're trying to basically ridicule him for calling it the China virus, which, guys, I get it if you got offended by him calling it the China virus. I completely understand that. I sympathize with that genuinely. But the problem is, when Donald Trump was calling it the China virus, he was trying to make a point that China caused all of the problems that we're experiencing right now. And yes, maybe it's not the best way. Maybe there were better ways he could do it. But you know what? He dropped it. And he basically did his Trumpian apology the best he could, which, you know, he came out and said, you know, we should not be racist towards anyone. No one should be pointing fingers at any other American. And again, the reason why he calls it the China virus is because viruses typically are named by their origin of first reported cases. So in other words, the first reported cases were in Wuhan, China. So this is called the Wuhan virus or the China. That is okay. My point is, there's so many things wrong with our current media right now that it's just insane. It's ridiculous, and it's making me sad. It seems like CNN has manipulated the Yang gang and Andrew Yang himself in order to fall for this fear-mongering narrative. Instead of bringing us all together, instead of coming together at a time where we need to, despite who the president is, despite what you think of him, I just want to make this point as time goes on. He says one thing like, oh, we need to open by Easter, but he expands the deadline by 30 days, which is well past Easter. Why? Because he's listening to the people around him. You could say that he's saying these horrible things and he's giving misinformation, and maybe at times he has said the wrong words. He has over talked, because that's what he does. He oversells everything. Everything's the best to him. Everything is the greatest and the best, and we're always number one, and and instead you have the media turning all of his words around and saying
Donald Trump always likes being the best, and now we have the most cases, so we're number one in that.
it's like, I don't see any real questions being asked from these journalists. I see them attempting to grandstand and accuse and belittle and attack and attack and attack, and I don't see this as American. It really, at this point, genuinely doesn't matter who the president is. I don't think there could have been a worse response. I don't think there could have been a better response. No one knows. And in fact, all we have is evidence to go by in the past of how past presidents have responded to these kinds of things, which is not very great. Just throwing that out there. You could have your biases and your dislikes toward Donald Trump all you want, but I want you to do something for me. Really listen to the words he's saying and try. I know this is hard because Donald Trump talks in a very condescending way. He likes to put his stamp on everything, and he likes to make sure that he's known for doing this and doing that, and whether he gets the credit or not, put his ego aside. If you put his ego aside and you listen to what he's saying and look at the actions he's taking, he is actually, at least the best he can, trying to preserve what we had in America. And maybe it's not great to some people, but you know what? The fall of a nation isn't great either. And quite honestly, I think we're already headed down that path, unfortunately. And I would argue that Donald Trump is too focused on what the doctors and scientists are saying. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's not, because it's true. If you listen to these conversations with Dr. Fauci and these other people, they really want everyone to stop shaking hands forever. They basically come out and say no one should ever shake hands again. No one should touch each other again. Everyone should wear masks for the rest of their lives, even after the pandemic. It's like, no. These guys, these scientists only care about their data points and their figures to reduce this and that. And you know what? They have good arguments and good points that we need to take to heart, and we need to really consider, and we need to figure out how to implement into our lives the best. But genuinely, they are doing it in an intrusive manner. And some people agree with this method and others don't. And I'm telling you right now, I think most Americans don't agree with that. And I think Donald Trump is coming out and acknowledging what is the heart of a lot of Americans right now. It's a small business. It's wondering how we're going to get past this and wondering what the consequences of all of our actions right now are going to be in the future. And these are all major things to consider. Just be wary of what the media is saying right now. And to you Yang supporters, really, just step back from CNN. Turn off CNN. Turn off any mainstream news source for at least 2 or 3 days. Look elsewhere. If you leave feeling more scared than secure, then you're probably looking at the wrong sources. If the mainstream source that you're looking from can only make you feel fear and panic and disarray and feel like everything is disordered, maybe that news source doesn't have your best interest in mind. Maybe they're playing on the fear portion of your brain. Maybe they are playing on your fears. Really consider these things when you're watching these. And you know what? All I know is whatever happens, it doesn't really matter, because the human spirit and the human soul, in fact, is actually stronger than all of this happening by a long shot. Bad things could happen. Bad things may happen. You know what? Bad things have happened through all of human history, and we are still here, and we still find ways to look for the good and bad. We still find ways to make each other happy and be there and support each other. And we find ways to get back to an area of peace and prosperity. This is kind of human nature. So no matter what the outcome is, we will get past this. And I think the wrong way to get past this is to just hate and hate and hate and think this one person's trying to help and it's never been in this situation, just like you've never been in this situation, and calling them out and say they did everything wrong. They shouldn't have done this, or they should have done this sooner. It's not helpful. literally put yourself in the shoes of being a president. Like, it doesn't matter. You've never been in this situation before. You don't know the best outcome until you have more data points to go by. Yes, he could have shut down things way sooner, and maybe our economy would already be down the drain right now. Maybe he did it at this time where, I don't know. You don't know. Not enough has come out. No one knows. Stop watching CNN. That's all I've got to say. Anyway, thank you for joining me. This is Humanity First with Matt. So I'll catch you guys later and have a good rest of your days. Damn it, no, I'm not supporting Joe Biden. This is not going to happen.